Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another exciting live stream with yours truly. It's Wednesday. I'm here. You're here. I got my designer hairdo and my microphone. So let's do this. Welcome to How to Get Hired with me, the company's expert, where I answer questions. I'll try and help people if I can. If you have any questions about getting a job or furthering your career or anything like that, anything along those lines. And we could even open it up to general business questions or anything that relates to that kind of thing. Making money, becoming independently wealthy, whatever people are interested in. I'm here to help. And as you can tell, this is action-packed. And the word of the day is throng. Throng, T-H-R-O-N-G, throng. If you've never heard of that word, it means a crowd, a dense crowd. So as in, you make your way through the throng. You know, the interesting thing about the English language as it's used in business is the vocabulary is not very big. If you want to learn a large vocabulary with lots and lots of words in it, you've got to go outside of business. You've got to go to the world of fiction and literature and stuff like that. In business, there's only a handful of words that they use, and they just keep using them over and over again. So there you go. Now you know something new, and in 5 seconds, you will have forgotten it because it's so boring. Actually, I have some news. Later this year, I'm going to be doing another course. Hopefully in December, it'll be out. I've got 2 courses so far, as you can see on the screen. But the third one, what was the title I had? The title was Write Like a Pro. Okay, and how to write professionally, writing emails, writing messages, how to express yourself. Now, on the surface, this sounds like another sort of generic thing where they teach you how to use a spell checker and a grammar checker and how to write a sentence. This is going beyond that. This is something that I haven't really seen many people talk about or teach. And it's beyond that. It's about how to express yourself clearly in a business context. And so, I mean, the thing is, not to sound arrogant or anything, but I could teach. I remember when I was a teacher, I sort of did teaching on the side in universities. And one of the things was I was saying to students, like, I can teach you how to write so that whatever you're trying to explain, no matter how complex, okay, somebody can understand it on their first reading. They never have to go back and reread a sentence because they got lost somewhere in the middle and they don't understand what you're talking about. You could break down quantum mechanics, you could express it like this, and people can get it on the first reading. That's good writing. And there's a way to do it. And it's not like I created this, it's not original, but there's a lot of principles out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. And when you put them together, it's extremely powerful. And communication is a huge thing in the world of business. If you want to further your career, you want to climb the ladder, you want to be considered for manager jobs, you want to be a decision maker, that kind of thing, communication is a huge part of it. It's not the be all end all, but it's a major, major component. It's going to be very hard to do that if you can't communicate very effectively. So that's hopefully what I'm going to be putting in this course. That's my intention anyway. So that'll hopefully be out later this year before the end of the year. And there you go. So there are 17 people here. 17 of you are here. So if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. If you're on the desktop on the right, just type in your question and I will do my best to answer. Oh, here we go. So first one. So Alonzo World Aqua, if I'm saying that right, says, and how do I grow for management positions now? Well, okay, that's very general, but there's a couple of things generally you need if you want to be a manager, okay? First of all, and the other thing, I'm going to put a disclaimer on all of this because, you know, there are some general principles, but, you know, in the world, there's many, many people with many, many points of view doing many, many different things. And so if I were to say, don't do it like this, always do it like this, someone's going to chime in and say, well, I did it that way and it works, right? Yes, everything happens some of the time, but I'm giving recommendations that are sort of playing the odds. Okay, the odds are that this is what's going to succeed. So if you want to be a manager, you need a couple of things. First of all, what really, really helps, and usually what's absolutely required, is technical experience in the area in which you're working. So if you want to be a manager of, I don't know, you want to run a small manufacturing operation, like a shop where you have 15 people making a product. Okay, let's say that that's the type of management or manager you want it to be. Well, it really, really helps if you've worked in that shop and you understand all the different roles and how to make the product yourself, right? Usually you can't be the manager unless you have that. So if you've worked in the shop for a few years, that really helps, okay? It's not it's not absolutely necessary, but it really, really helps. Now, this might be a shock for some people coming out of business school where they haven't worked in a shop, but they're applying for a job to become the manager of the shop. And this can be a bit of a shock for those graduates coming out thinking like, oh yeah, I could run the place. And I'm not necessarily making fun of that because they do know business and they do understand management, but what they're missing is the actual hands-on experience doing that. They're also missing the industry experience. So they don't understand empirically what customers want, what they are willing to pay for, what they care about, or the suppliers or what the competitors are doing. Like they don't understand that because they've never really worked in that business. They've never seen that stuff firsthand. So that is actually a considerable drawback, okay? Knowing the theory of how to run something efficiently is great, and I'm not putting it down, but it is not the complete story, okay? So you need that hands-on experience. That will definitely enhance what you're doing. Secondly, apart from anything you learn in school, it's usually one of the requirements, absolute requirements, is you have to have people skills. You have to be able to communicate with people successfully. That means you have to be able to tell them to do things in a way that makes them not want to kill you and actually do what you say. And you also have to be able to get information from them about what's going on. They should be able to talk to you and be honest with you and this kind of thing. And that's extremely important, okay? Being able to motivate people, being able to communicate to a group of people is a really essential skill. So you get into things like, that's where it starts to get into like, is it, public speaking skills, maybe a little bit, right? So the more you can do to develop those skills, that's something that I would say you really don't learn in school. You can, but anyone can learn it by just being in the world and practicing these skills, like trying to use them as often as you can. And it's more of a voluntary thing. Some people are just not into it. It's not their ambition, and that's cool. It doesn't have to be your ambition. But other people, they want to develop those skills. And let me tell you, after a few years of that, you will be a pro, and you will be an obvious choice for someone who should be in charge. If you have everyone's respect and they like you and they'll listen to you and they feel they can be honest with you. Okay, so that's very important too. So then on top of that, it helps knowing a bit of business theory, okay? Like how to communicate with people, how to run something efficiently, the importance of dealing with customers and how you deal with customers and all of that, and a little bit of accounting, right? If you want to go higher up into management, the language of business is money. So you should be able to talk money, meaning you should be able to understand accounting. You should be able to understand like a financial statement and all this kind of stuff. That's also a component. That's when you get a little bit higher beyond the supervisory level. Okay. Now, what usually happens is that, and I'm sure you guys have had experience with this, if you work in a place, they need someone to be the supervisor, right? You're maybe a worker, and out of every 10 workers, they might have one supervisor, and they got to have someone to be a supervisor. So what they end up usually doing is they just take the person that's been there the longest or something, and they make them the supervisor. Now, yes, you can do that, but usually that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good supervisor. In fact, that's also a recipe for promoting a lot of bad supervisors, because a lot of bad things happen when you don't know the theory behind communication and leading people and all this kind of stuff. But if you were to focus on those things and get a bit of each, you'd be well on your way. Okay, if you applied for a supervisor position, you said, I'd like to be the supervisor. I understand that this person's retiring and you're going to be looking for somebody else. I'd like to put myself forward for that. You would be more of an obvious, serious choice, right? If you had some of those things. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a good question, Alonzo. I'd love to get into more of that stuff. I don't really get a chance to talk about it too often. Okay, who else we got? We got Smith. Smith says, how do I get the executive presence and soft skills required to get solution architect jobs? Well, you have to clarify for me what a solution architect is. Is that like an IT thing? Okay, that sounds like a technical industry specific term. I'm assuming solution architect would be some kind of IT related thing, like a systems admin type position or consultant. Now you're talking about soft skills. Well, first of all, how do I get the executive presence? Executive presence, that's an interesting term. I wonder what that means. If you want to communicate with executives, if you want them to take you seriously, then there's a few things you can do. First of all, you can develop your communication skills, okay? In my Get Hired course, I talk about that. I've talked about it in some of my free videos on YouTube. But for example, if you are to send a message to an executive using something like LinkedIn, okay, someone you don't know, a lot of the time when people try that, because of the way they phrase their message, it causes the receiver to make a few assumptions about you. Like, first of all, this person doesn't know how to write. This person doesn't understand how things work. Things like this. And that makes the receiver disinclined to respond to them. Okay? So being able to communicate properly is great. What do I mean by that? I keep throwing that word around. That means, first of all, it covers technically how to write, how to use good grammar, blah, blah, blah. Then it covers more higher level things. What you say, what you choose to say to somebody. Okay? That's a huge factor in whether they're going to respond to you. If you say something that kind of is off protocol, like, for example, let's say you were walking down the street and somebody over there, there's just somebody hanging out by the road or something where you're walking, and they say, "Hey, you want to buy something?" Right? Now, I don't know who that person is. I don't know what they're selling. I don't know anything about them, but just the way they phrase that and the fact that they chose to open with that sends off some red flags that, like, they're probably not a professional person. They're probably, not a very, they might not be a very nice person. There's no evidence of that. It might not be the greatest thing for me to go and deal with this person. Okay. But if someone said, they said, "Hey, how's it going?" Something like that. They opened with that. You'd be maybe a little bit more inclined to talk to them. Now, obviously, this is a very simplistic example, right? But it's that kind of thing, right? What you say, what you choose to say, is a huge part of whether someone's going to respond to you. And, it's funny. Probably one of the most fundamental mistakes, and I see this every day. One of the places I see this is YouTube in comments on my videos and other things, where people will contact you and then they'll talk all about themselves. Like, you don't know who they are. They're a stranger. And they'll go at length into something about them. Like for example, if you maybe say a sentence or two, it might not be the end of the world, but if you write a page about yourself, it has nothing to do with the other person whatsoever. Okay, you're contacting a stranger and you've You've got a page of dense text going into the story about something you did and what you think about things. And the other person is thinking like, okay, like what's this got to do with me? And what do you want? It's a turn off. A lot of people won't respond to that. Okay. One of the things that you learn in marketing is that you tailor your message to the audience, right? And if you're talking especially to a stranger, someone who doesn't really know you, meaning that they're not really interested in you because they don't know who you are, you talk about them. For example, if someone were to contact you and say, hey, I read that comment that you wrote on, I don't know, this video or a tweet on Twitter or whatever, and when you said this, I thought that was really interesting because you touched upon this concept and that kind of thing. I think that's really cool. What other insights do you have about that? Something like this. You see how I'm making it about the other person, about the receiver. People are a lot more inclined to respond to that than the opposite. Than if you said like, hi, how's it going? So I was on my way over here yesterday and, and something happened to me. I remembered something that happened to me 5 years ago where my brother did this. And then, they told me about this thing that had happened in the news and I thought this. And, it's funny because I've always figured that blah, 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 blah. Like I'm talking all about myself. The other person is like, okay, I really don't care. I don't know who you are. I don't know what's this got to do with me. Do you send this to everybody? Because that's like, there's nothing custom tailored in this message to me or to us, So little elementary things like that. A lot of people make these kind of blunders. You want to contact someone and talk all about yourself. I'm looking for a job. I think I would be really good at this. The problem is people go, okay, great, goodbye, So anyway, that kind of thing, if you want more of an executive presence, is learning some of those skills and how to communicate with people. Okay. You want to communicate with people in such a way that they enjoy talking to you. They get something out of it. Okay, so things like this. So that'll be something. Now, on top of that, I'm not a solution architect, so I can only surmise that you would need technical skills in that area. And soft skills would be, if it is in IT, and I'm going to look down here. Yes, it's an IT job like cloud solutions architect. Yes. Okay, so you might have a little bit of an advantage if you're in IT, because generally speaking, on average, people in IT, their communication skills are below average, okay? All technical areas, engineering, science, all that kind of stuff. Generally speaking, their technical skills are below average. I can say this. I have a degree in engineering. I've worked with these people. I've been in school with these people. I've encountered them in my professional life. And yes, finding a person that has real technical skill in these areas that has also got very developed communication skills and interpersonal skills, that's rare. So if you can develop those, and you can, because it's not something you're born with, it's something you learn. If you can develop those, that would really give you an advantage. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Thanks for the question there, Smith. That's really good. I like getting intelligent questions from people, and we've had 2 so far, so that's great. Okay, Justin. Justin Rowan says, question on situational responses in an interview. Was amazed with feedback from a peer, how short it can be. Okay. What do you recommend, though, how long a story-based situational response to be? Okay, I am having a problem understanding exactly what you mean, but if you're referring to in a job interview, okay, when they ask you a behavioral question, that's a question where you have to answer with a story from your past. They say, tell me about a time you did this. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker, but you resolved it. Tell me about that. So the answer to that would be a custom story from your past about something you did. Okay. Now you're asking how long it would be. Well, generally kind of the way these things go is they have something called the STAR method. Maybe you've heard of it. I've done videos on it. And you should try and answer the question in, approximately 45 seconds, maybe a minute. Don't be talking for 10 minutes, okay? And don't give a 5-second answer, okay? I've got a video on the STAR method. You could check that out. It's the format in which you answer. So STAR, situation, task, action, result. So you would say, in answer to that job interview question, you would say, 2 years ago, I was in this role and I was given the task of having to do this. Okay, so that's situation, task. So I had to do this particular job, and the problem was that my coworker hadn't showed up for work that day. And we work as a team. So this was a real problem in getting that job done, right? That's the task. So action. So here's what I did. I did this. I asked another employee if they would come over and give me a hand, if I could borrow them. I went to my boss. I said, I'm going to need additional resources. They said yes. They gave me 2 other people to work with. I worked with them. I needed to train them a little, but I did. We got the task done in the required amount of time. The result was good. The boss said it was great. Result. The boss commended me because it was so well done, and that actually is what led to my promotion to supervisor, something like that. Okay, so you're using that format, and you want to keep your story at around 45 seconds. Okay, that's why it's good to rehearse several stories before you go to an interview. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. John Miller says, hi, John. Pax. Somebody contacted me last week with the username Pax Romanus. Hi, Bill. What should we answer to which will be your first actions and priority in the first 6 months? Seems tricky. Well, this is another question where you have to be a mind reader, okay? Because there is really no right answer to that, okay? That's the thing. Like, depending on what job you're getting, right? What level it's at, what your role is, it's going to be entirely different actions. One of the first things you would say that's pretty safe is like, well, I'd like to, first of all, complete the onboarding process. Then I would want to get a thorough understanding of what the job involves. And more than that, an idea from my immediate boss on how they would recommend that I do the job. What's the things that they care about? Because usually you have conflicting priorities. For example, quality versus speed. Some people like things done really fast, lots of volume. Other people like quality, but they don't care so much about quite, how much you do as long as it's done well. So I would want to develop a thorough understanding of that. Then the rest of the question might be based on your technical understanding of whatever the job is. Okay. So presumably you're interviewing for a job where you have some technical skills in that job. And that would be a vehicle. This question would be a vehicle for you to then show off maybe some of your technical skills. Okay. You see, I do know what to do. This job is not beyond me. I'm very comfortable. I know exactly how to do it. So that would be a vehicle to demonstrate that. That would be my recommendation. Now, if I knew more of the details of what job it was and what your background was and what the culture of the company was, etc., then I'd be able to answer that more specifically. But good question. Hélène, is that French? Hélène, should I invest money in professional preparation for screening tests? Screening tests for what? Like a job? It covers personality tests, credibility tests, and more. These preparation sets cost $400. Well, it isn't a yes or no answer. I mean, look, depending on what you're going for, maybe that might make sense. But I think for most people, I would say no. No. You don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to learn that. Now, in my course is $100, not $400. Just kidding. Look, there's a lot of, this is a standard thing that's offered by a lot of independent HR firms, okay? HR companies, there may be like 10 people in the company, a little company that does HR. They will do several services. They will do recruiting and selection. They'll do consulting. This is one of the things that they offer. They will come in, they will do psychometrics, they will do mock interviews, they will do assessment tests. They'll be able to coach you on how to interview and things like this. And there isn't sort of a simple answer whether it's good or not. There are some good ones out there and there's some bad ones out there. $400 seems a bit steep, especially if this is the first time you've ever done it. Now, if you're an executive, this is like this is peanuts. Like, that's kind of less than what you would want to pay. Anything worth doing starts at about $1,000 for an executive. Okay. Anything less is kind of basic amateur for them. So, but if you're just at the worker level, I don't think you need this. Certainly not for that kind of money. There's some free stuff you can do on the internet. You can take personality tests. You could take psychometrics. You could take a lot of other things on the internet for free if you wanted to. Okay. So, I mean, once again, I'd have to know the context to really know if it makes sense for you. But if you're just starting out, I would say no. John Miller says, can't ask questions. Yeah, hopefully you can. Oh yeah, I see you've asked one lower down. Okay, good. El Duque? Is that how you say her name? El Duque. It's like the whoosh, like that, the D here. Anyway, it's a joke only old people would get, like me. Hi, Bill. I work in IT and have been applying for jobs for over a year now. Can't seem to get past the interview process. I'm happy I have a job now, but it's hard to find a job moving up. Any advice? Listen, I don't know about the IT industry specifically now. I used to be in the IT world like 25 years ago. I founded a software company, but that's like in another life when the whole industry was completely different. It was before the cloud, it was before all that kind of stuff. So things have changed a lot since I was in it. But for this kind of thing, okay, the way this usually goes is, and I'm playing sort of the odds here, is that it's very competitive for supervisor level stuff, okay? And a lot of times they will want more than just technical skills, and they will want more than someone that interviews well, okay? And I've spoken about this before, but the main element there is trust. They don't know you. You're an unknown quantity if you're looking for a supervisor job or a management job, other than in the place you work, in your department, okay, you're an unknown quantity, and they would want someone that they know, okay? That means that they've worked with for a while or they're just familiar with. Now, it is possible to bypass that, okay, if you basically get a job through networking. I know I sound like a broken record, that's what I always say to people, but it's true. That's the way you can sort of become known to them. Okay? For example, you contact them, they end up talking to you, they like you, they invite you in. You contact them and say, hey, I see you have a job for this. Would it make sense for me to apply? They say, yeah, sure, come on in and apply. And it feels completely different than going through standard channels where you send in an application in response to a job posting. Okay. This feels like a referral because they're inviting you in. You're not just, a stranger member of the public that they don't know who applied. You're now someone that they've asked to come in, right? So that can be the tiebreaker for a lot of these things. A lot of those type of jobs, like management jobs, any kind of job where you're a decision maker, okay? How can I put this? They always say that it's about technical skills, it's about experience. It's not. It's about trust. It's about someone they trust. This is evidenced by the fact that you can apply for a job, you totally exceed all the technical skills and experience that they're looking for, but yet you don't get it. Okay? And it's not because of competition, being very stiff. It's because At the end of the day, if they're putting you in charge of their baby, they need to trust you. It's hard to trust a stranger. It's hard to hire someone off the street, not knowing them at all, and then put them in charge of something extremely important to you. Okay. That's the thing. So that's why when you sort of put yourself forward for those jobs through networking, that's why you have a little bit of an edge. Okay. Because you're demonstrating to them your initiative and how passionate you are about the job and how easy you are to work with and all that kind of stuff. You're demonstrating that. And they give you a chance based on that, not what's written on your resume. Okay, that's how that stuff works. And for those of you that have never heard of this, look, obviously you have the technical skills. The assumption is you have the technical skills to do the job. It's just about putting yourself forward for it. Dagger, is that how you say her name? Dagger? Dagger says, "Hi, what can I say in a job interview if I come from a startup or your own business and is now looking to work in another company?" Yeah, here's the problem. Okay, you and I both know that working in a startup is like a whole level higher, like of, much more value, much more a challenge than working in sort of a corporate environment. Okay, like at the worker level, right? I mean, it requires so many other skills. And these are skills that large companies would really love to have. The problem is that you end up talking to recruiters who have no idea about that world that even exists and what's involved. They have no idea. They can't recognize those talents when they see them. That's the problem. And so the temptation is to tell them all about your startup experience or your experience running your own business. Okay. Now, maybe running your own business is slightly different, but for a startup thing, the problem is they've never heard of the startup. Okay. Now, if it's a startup that's like they've heard of, that's a whole different situation. Like if you're a big startup, everybody knows it, that's a different situation. But if you're just in a startup that, these people are unaware of, the problem is that they tend to value that experience less. Okay. It's ridiculous, but it's true. So you want to tell them all about this because you and I both know it's a great accomplishment. However, the more they hear about it, the less they value your experience. That's the problem. Okay. So, the problem is when you go through recruiters are looking for some very basic things. Okay. And it's silly what they look for. I mean, I think we probably are all agreed that what recruiters look for is silly. The first question they have for you when you apply for a job is, how many years of experience do you have in this job? And if you say, well, 0, their usual response is, well, I'm sorry, you're just not qualified. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, you could be Albert Einstein, but just because you have no experience fixing a car, they would reject Albert Einstein if Albert Einstein applied to work on a car, right? Like, it's stupid, right? They do this because they actually don't know how to assess somebody's worth, okay? This is a well-known thing. So, God, I hate to always say the same thing, but anytime you're changing careers, which is what you're doing, you're going from a startup to presumably a corporate environment, you do it through networking because you sell yourself on your worth, on your intrinsic worth. If you have a conversation with the boss, the hiring manager, and you show that you're intelligent and you're easy to deal with and you just get it, you understand the industry, you understand the work, you understand working with people, and they like you, they'll hire you. It's just as simple as that. I mean, one of the big reasons why that works is because let's say they post a job, let's say 200 people apply, okay? They get 200 resumes, 200 applications, right? Okay. How many people, before that job is posted, how many people contact the boss, the hiring manager, and say, hey, I noticed that you guys, do this kind of work. I've heard of your company. I think you guys do a fantastic job. Just like you to know, if ever you're looking for somebody, I'm fantastic at this, and I solve this problem. So if ever you are looking for someone, please let me know. Something like that. At the most basic level, that's the most basic form of networking. How many people do that? Do all 200 people do that who applied for the job? No. You're lucky if you get one that does that. So already, you jump to the front of the line because you've shown that you have initiative and you have passion enough to work there to do that. Now, those two things alone can sell you. They can make up for perhaps not having as much experience or technical skills as possibly another candidate, but you're demonstrating some of your intrinsic qualities by doing this, okay? I mean, right off the bat, that's the advantage it has. There are other advantages too. The other advantage is they get to interact with you and see how you are. Here is a free sample of what it's like to deal with me, right? How many candidates have given them that? 0, right? So that's the value in doing this stuff. Helen says, I'm a marketing manager. Helen, you were... oh, yeah, okay, the assessment tests. Well, I mean, a marketing manager, that could mean a variety of different things, but then maybe it might make sense for you. But if you've never done anything like that, I would at least look at what's for free on the internet first. Because there are many people, I'm being honest with you, there's many, as you probably know this already, there's many people that will take your money, right? And give you something that they claim is of value, right? And some of those people are good, some of them are not, But that's a common sort of thing, is to say like, oh yeah, we know better than anyone else, right? Am I describing myself? Yeah, exactly. I'm giving you my advice on here, but I mean, like always, go out and test it. Go out and try it, You don't have to believe me on everything. Try it, And the thing about this stuff is it's very fuzzy, For example, they say, when you go to a job interview, don't look unfriendly, don't look mean, right? So I could give advice and say, don't look mean or unfriendly when you go to a job interview. But there's always going to be somebody that says, like, I looked really mean. I had I've got a face tattoo and I showed up in a leather jacket with spikes, and I snarled at them and glared at them, and they gave me the job. So that clearly shows that you're full of crap, Look, everything happens some of the time. But there's a lot of people that claim, oh yeah, we know what we're talking about. So I would try the free stuff first if you've never done it. And if you want something more, you've done the free stuff, you've done what's out there, or you really trust these people because you know them, then I would consider it. Okay, now where did I leave off here? Let's see here. By the way, shout out to all my members. Thank you for being my members. I've got several members. You guys get free videos every week that are members only. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, we did Dagger. John Miller. If someone applies for a job that requires a bachelor degree, but they only have the experience, not the degree, how would you mention it on the cover letter? I wouldn't mention it. Like the fact that you don't have something that they've said they're looking for, I would not mention that. Like if you're trying to get yourself eliminated, sure. See, look, the thing is, here's a great issue, okay, that this brings up. In a lot of the videos I've done on YouTube, For example, the one about salary, right? Like if they ask you, what are your salary expectations? What do you say? And the bottom line is you try not to answer the question. And if they really force you and put the screws to you, you give a wide range, very, really low to really high, but like both numbers are just within the realm of what's reasonable, or credible, right? Other people say, well, look, if they're not going to pay me what I want, then I want them to say it right up front, and then we can end the interview here, and then I stop wasting my time. Okay? I get a lot of comments for people saying that. And look, hey, that's what you believe, go for it. All the more power to you. But that's usually not what ends up being successful mostly. The other factor is that, people don't want to pay money if not necessary, and they don't want to pay money if they don't have to, right? When you go to the store, if you've got if there's like, I don't know, a can of baked beans or something at the grocery store, one place sells it for, I don't know, $1, another place sells it for $10. Would you go and buy it for $10? No, you try and get it for $1, right? But if you end up really liking that product, you think, oh, that's the best can of baked beans that I've ever had in my life, you're willing to pay more, right? So by talking to the candidate, if the recruiter or the hiring manager starts seeing your value, they go, this person's good. I like them. I want them. Then they're willing to pay more money, But if you go in there with the attitude like, hey, what are you paying? Just tell me that right off the bat. And they say, well, we're paying maybe this. And like, okay, well, I'm not interested. Goodbye. It's like the only way they would have ever possibly wanted you is for the minimum, because you're not really ingratiating yourself to them. Right? That's the attitude of a lot of people that have never worked in sales or marketing. You realize this is a numbers game. If it isn't worth your time to be at the interview, you're signaling, I'm a bad employee. This isn't worth my time. I'm arrogant. I have an inflated sense of self-worth. That's how it's coming across. I'm not making judgments here. I'm just saying that's the impression you're giving to the receiver, right? That's the problem. Okay, this is a real thing. Okay, so your question was like, okay, if they say it requires a bachelor, but you don't have a bachelor, but maybe you've been in that job for many years, so you can do it, so you're applying for it, but these people are telling you, oh, to work in that job here, you need a bachelor degree. Look, the other thing you need to know is that when they write the requirements for a job posting, not all the time, but a lot of the time, those aren't really requirements. Those are guidelines, okay? Many times we see if someone falls in love with a candidate, they'll overlook some of those supposed requirements, okay? And you might find that job, they didn't really need a bachelor degree, right? I'm sure everybody here can tell stories of like a place you've worked where in order to get that job, officially you need this, but like 30 or 40% of the people working there in that job don't have that, right? It's not really a requirement. So if you send in your application with your cover letter and you say quite clearly on your resume, this is my education, and it doesn't show a bachelor degree, okay? Your cover letter, you don't say, I don't have this. I mean, that's like asking them to just eliminate you, right? I understand why you might want to do that. In the interests of honesty, I'm going to fully disclose everything bad about me so that you don't hire me, right? But this is a sales process. You wow them with what you have, and then if it turns out that the bachelor degree wasn't actually a show-stopping issue, great. Don't draw attention to that. Never lead off with like, here's why you shouldn't hire me, right? It's like going into a job interview saying, okay, Before we get started, I just want you to know, I have anger issues. I'm very moody. I have a hard time showing up for work on time sometimes. And I really, really don't want to be seated next to somebody who doesn't have far left political views. You know, like I just want you to know that before we even start. Okay. If you were to say something like that, they'd probably go, okay, well, you know what? It sounds like you've got several issues already, and I don't see this really working out. So thank you very much for your time. They're not going to look any further, right? What you want is them to look long enough to say, hey, you've got this and you've got this. That's really cool. And look, you're so easy to deal with. I enjoy talking to you. You know, all those things count in your favor. And then later on, they go, well, I don't see a bachelor degree, but you know what? Wasn't really important anyway. We'd like to have that, but it's really not an issue, right? So that's how you do these things. Amina says, hello. Hello, Amina. Thank you for being here. Smith, thanks, Bill. That's very insightful. Well, thank you, Smith. That's a very intelligent question. John Miller, is it recommendable to follow up 2 or 3 times with a recruiter or hiring manager when they don't respond after an interview, or it seems desperate? It doesn't really matter what it seems like. What matters is if you're still in the running, but they think they've gotten back to you, but in fact they haven't, and there was a mix-up. That's what's important. Okay, so if that happened, then you want to get back to them. I told a story. It was like one of the first 10 videos I did on YouTube about some of my worst job interviews when I was like interviewing for jobs earlier on in my career, and you know, I was hiring with a company, and I had gone to I think it ended up being like 9 interviews or something retarded like that. And, you know, all of a sudden they kind of ghosted me. They stopped responding. And I thought like, oh, I've done like 6 interviews just to have people not respond. So I responded. I said like, hello, you know, are you guys there? Can I expect any further response? Nothing. So I contacted their boss and said, hi, you know, I was in the hiring process for this position. I haven't heard from this person. I was just wondering if we're moving forward or that's it, you know. And they said, oh, actually that person's left the company. So it's good that you contacted me because, yes, as far as I'm aware, you're still in the running. You know, so this is the person that you should that you should contact. Get in touch with them because they're taking over from that one that left, and we resume the process. I'd eventually got the job, but I mean, what are the odds of that happening? That's not the most likely scenario, but it happens. People go on vacation, things happen, stuff falls through the cracks. So don't second guess yourself about responding. If they said something encouraging to you, they said, okay, you know, thank you for coming in. That was a great interview. You know, what we're going to do is we're going to contact you in 2 days. We're going to set up an interview it's going to be a panel interview. So you should hear us in 2 days with the time okay. And then you don't hear anything, right? So in that kind of thing, just follow up. Just say, hey, just following up. If there was anything further with this, please let me know. If you guys need any information, just ask. Thank you very much. Take care. You know, that's all you need to do. You don't have to worry about how it seems and all this kind of stuff. Just do it. You follow up once, you follow up twice. If it's like a dream job or something, follow up 3 times, and then that's it. And you're not focused on that. You're focused on moving forward. Okay. They're going to do what they're going to do. You just focus on pursuing opportunities and creating the greatest likelihood of you getting a good job. Okay. Anmal Singh says, hey, sir. Hey, Anmal. Can you please answer, what can you bring to the company? Like I work for a telecom company and I gave an interview for IKEA. And since I have no experience in furniture industry. okay, that's just a rephrased version of why should we hire you? Okay. Or what are your strengths? Same question. You answer with how you meet their job requirements. So if they said, we're looking for someone with experience in this, with skills in operating this, they can operate a forklift. They have experience dealing with sales. They have experience dealing with customer service. Okay. And they have 5 years in the industry. That's what they've said they're looking for. Then when they ask you, what can you bring to this company? What you say is, well, I have experience with customers. I have experience in customer service and in sales. I have skills. I have the ability to drive a forklift. I'm licensed to drive a forklift, and I've been trained. I have 5 years in this industry. And like anything else they're looking for, because these are the things they've said they're looking for. So when they hear that, they'll go, okay, good. That's what we're looking. They're thinking like, okay, yeah, tick, 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 tick. They seem to have all the stuff, right? And you're also signaling that you feel that those things are important. Okay? They feel those things are important. You feel those things are important, right? That's also what you're signaling too. So that's how I would answer that. If you have no experience in the furniture industry, focus on what you have that they are looking for. And that's what you say. So maybe one of the things was they require experience in the furniture industry. That's what they're looking for. But they've also said 15 other things that they're looking for. So you say those other 15 things that you have. El Duque. Thanks so much for the advice. I'm super grateful and never thought of the referral, networking, or trusting someone you just met stance. Much appreciated. I'll use it at next week's interview. It's holy crap. I'm really falling behind here. I just want to say, it's so funny. I get people on a daily basis that challenge me over, the hidden job market. I don't think that exists, right? That doesn't exist. That's some high-level corporate baloney, for want of a better word. It's like someone saying to me, I don't think the country Bolivia exists. I think, it's a made-up thing, and you're just repeating it. It doesn't exist. And I challenge you. I don't agree with what you say, that there's this country called Bolivia in South America. Right? Now, my thoughts are always like, well, I don't know how I can prove that to you. I mean, okay, maybe I've been to Bolivia, so I know it exists. It's not just a thing that people talk about. Now, here's a person who okay, you could take 10 seconds and do a Google search, and you could find articles on Bolivia, you could find pictures of Bolivia, you could find all kinds of information on Bolivia, but they think that all of that is a hoax. They think okay, well, someone could have just written this article and slapped a few pictures on it, and they say, this is Bolivia. I don't believe them. I don't believe the source, right? There are people in this world that believe the earth is flat, right? And they think that all the scientific evidence that shows that it isn't, they think that's all a fabrication. They refuse to believe it because they think it's all propaganda, right? So I don't know how to convince this person, no, Bolivia is a real country. The hidden job market is real. I've existed solely in the hidden job market for 10 years. That's how executives get a job. If ever you've worked at a company and they've announced, we've gotten a new CEO, and usually the first time you hear about this is when they say, we've hired the person and they're going to start in 6 months and they're going to gradually take over. And in 18 months, the existing CEO is going to finally retire and this new person will be our CEO, right? But it's all done. They've been hired and they've got a plan together. You never hear about it. What are the odds? How often is it that you hear about it by seeing a job posting we're looking for a CEO. Send your applications to this email address, right? You usually don't see that. That's because it's done on the hidden job market. They don't just want some stranger and just, here you go, here's the keys to the company. Here, you could take this company, you could run it right into the ground. We don't know who you are. Oh, sure, you've produced a resume that says you've done this, but we don't really know who you are. We've never worked with you before, right? So as you get to higher level jobs, 90% of all executive jobs are on the hidden job market, right? The higher you go, the more the jobs are in the hidden job market, the more people get them in the hidden job market, and the more people look in the hidden job market. Hidden job market just means that they haven't posted it publicly. The job exists, but they haven't posted it. They haven't put a posting on the internet, and they haven't put a posting up on a telephone pole saying, looking for someone for this job. But they're looking for someone. That's what the hidden job market means. And most jobs are in the hidden job market. I'm not sure what the exact stats are for like worker level jobs. Like it might be 50-50, maybe a little bit more in the posted market. I'm not sure. But certainly when you get to the supervisor level, there's more in the hidden job market than there is in the posted job market. Okay, I need to hurry up here and catch up. Okay. El Duques, thanks so much for the advice. I'm super grateful and never thought of, okay, I read that one. Antonio Lopez says, what energy level should I have and maintain in interviews? I know recruiters and hiring authorities are looking for positivity. I am paranoid I might come off as too much with a mirror in front of me. Here's what I would do. I would do some mock interviews with people. Generally, you want to be positive. You want to have a little bit of energy, but you don't want to be too like intense, right? Okay. So the best way, we all start off, we don't really have a lot of self-awareness. I mean, hello. I certainly can say that about myself, especially when I was starting out, but it helps if you do mock interviews and then, with a person that can be honest with you. And say, maybe just take it down a notch, Okay. But think about it. Let's say this was a job interview. You're the recruiter. I'm the candidate. And, I sit down to do the job interview with you. And I'm like, like that doesn't look very good. If I sit down, I'm kind of like, that doesn't look good either. But if I'm insanely happy, that doesn't look good either. If I'm just like in your face, right? So you just want to be pleasant. You want to try and be positive. You want to try and be friendly, and that kind of stuff, right? Okay, what you say is professional, but your body language is more relaxed and friendly for most things. But once again, it's going to vary by job. If you're going for like a job for chief accountant, you don't want to be too sort of laid back and friendly, like sort of lounging around, right? You want to be a bit more, let's get to business. So you want to be pleasant, but let's get to business, right? A lot of technical people don't realize the importance of, being able to click as people and have them like dealing with you. What your goal is that at the end of the interview, they're a little bit sad that it's over. That's what your goal is. You want them to enjoy dealing with you. Not be like, you find this a chore, so they're going to find it a chore. You don't want that, right? You might not enjoy job interviews, and you might not particularly like them, but you want to make it as pleasant an experience for them as possible. Okay. I mean, there's a lot to this. Like, for example, just not getting defensive about anything, not having a problem with everything, not getting offended at everything. Things like that also help, right? Within reason. Okay, it's called diplomacy. You want to see how, look at how if you guys ever see like the United Nations, or you see diplomats at work, okay, usually these people are very well versed in diplomacy, which is like, look, we have differences, but let's try and work together, right? And you see how they talk to each other. They, they're happy and they're smiling and, that kind of stuff. You're not going to really get much done when okay, let's do this. Like, no, I don't want to do that. No, we're not going to do, that doesn't really lend itself to working well together and having them enjoy working with you, right? So same principles apply. You like my spastic, unprofessional kind of way I talk about this stuff? Has nothing to do with the fact that I'm drinking Red Bull. Absolutely nothing. Okay. John Miller, I think that's where I am. John Miller. If you are asked your salary requirements by email before the first interview, you provide it and they don't call you, is it okay to retract yourself and contact them with a lower salary range? Well, look, look, everything happens some of the time, but usually the way this goes is that was your one shot. If you ask for too much, well, in their opinion, too much, more than what they're willing to pay, then you've basically just eliminated yourself. Okay. Now, it's not the end of the world. It just means that, if you are being honest and they're being honest, there is no zone of possible agreement, right? If the only salary you feel you can accept is $50,000 or more, and the highest salary they're willing to pay is $40,000 or less, there's just no way you could reach an agreement on that. Okay. So if everyone's being honest, then it's maybe good to see that now rather than going through a huge song and dance and multiple interviews and things just to realize that they can't give you the money that you would need. Okay. And at that point, it doesn't matter what you do. If you retract it or you contact it, it's over. It's over. I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but think of it as a lucky escape. Okay. Is there a book that you would recommend that is all about soft skills? Yes. Everybody asks me that. I always give the same answer. It's everybody's favorite, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I've actually it's like the 6th video I ever did on my YouTube channel. I did like a really short summary of that book, like a book review. But that's the only book I would really recommend universally. You read that and you're well on your way. Like Dale Carnegie wrote many, many things. Like he's long dead. These were written a long time ago, but they've never, like this book in particular, I think it's his most famous book. It's never been out of print because it's so good and it's timeless. I mean, people don't change, so it's about people. So check that out. El Duque, last question. I found a job I'd be good for, but they passed on me after the interview. Now they posted the job again since they haven't found anyone. Should I follow up and ask them to reconsider me? It doesn't hurt to ask, but I'm not confident that that's going to really do much. Also, just so you know, posting and reposting jobs, that's a red flag for a bad company or a shady company, which you might not want to be involved with for a variety of reasons. Some of them above board, some of them kind of nefarious. Jack Alexander. I have been in my call center job for 2.5 years and my retail job for almost 5 years. Okay, so you're working 2 jobs right now? I have not advanced. Do hiring managers look down if there is no advancement? Well, the answer that I'm going to give you is the answer for most things, which is yes and no. Some of them do, some of them don't. I'd say more of them, if I had to guess, I would say more of them don't, but some people do. There's all kinds of people out there that hold all kinds of ridiculous, crazy opinions, like worldview about people's value, people's traits, people's experience, people's qualifications. It takes all kinds to make a world. And yes, the answer is yes. There are some people that think like that. However, there's a lot of people that don't think like that. So don't let it dissuade you. Okay? Job search it's a very serendipitous process. It's sort of like things have to just come together. You happen to have skills that over here, these people are looking for right now. And you have a personality type and all this other stuff that these people over here also happen to think is awesome. And then they hire you, right? It's like you have the skills here to help these people over here who are looking for someone. But these people over here think that these skills are pointless and not of any value. These people are wrong. You could have really helped them, but they don't hire you. It's their loss. We see that every day, constantly. It's just a numbers game. You have to keep doing this until you just happen to get a match, right? It's like shooting arrows at a target. Those like roundel type targets, right? You do archery, you shoot arrows. It's like, it's random probability, right? Whether you hit the bullseye or not. But one thing you can say is that the more arrows you shoot, the likelihood of you hitting a bullseye goes up, right? And you have a certain amount of control, but up to a point, and then the rest is random probability. It depends more on what they happen to be looking for and what their worldview happens to be on things you have, right? So if you get rejected by people, don't take it too hard. I mean, I see a lot of young people. It's like I know this is hard to you can't just snap out of everything, but once you get older, you realize there's some people that they are looking for the wrong things and they have unrealistic expectations and they're just ignorant, about things you might have. So they don't understand the value of it, right? There's nothing you can do about that. You just keep looking until you stumble upon someone that just happens to think that everything you have is amazing. They're more like you. They're similar background, similar worldview, similar skills, that kind of stuff. That's what this process is about. Dagger again. Thank you. I watch and listen to your videos and advice. They really help and always end hopeful and positive and more prepared about finding a job. Yes, and it should be. It should be positive and hopeful. This is a skill like any other. A lot of people think that being qualified for a job is the same thing as being able to get a job. It's not. As you can tell by this ridiculous process of hiring, which is usually completely ineffective at finding talented people, it's not based on whether you're qualified for the job or not. It's based on a bunch of other crap. Starting from the very first question they ask in a lot of job interviews, which is, tell me about yourself. What an insulting question. What an idiotic question. And I get recruiters commenting on my YouTube channel, on my videos on how to answer, tell me about yourself, and saying the most ridiculous things like, when I ask, tell me about yourself, you better tell me about your hobbies, because if you don't, I'm rejecting you. It's just so ludicrous, And then you have another one that says the complete opposite of that. Like, guys, learn how to do an interview. Stop asking cliched questions from 60 years ago that it's like the most general question you could possibly get, and they're looking for a very specific answer. It's like, people don't have ESP, nor are they mind readers, So you guys know, as job seekers, that this is just such a silly process. First thing is you have to be able to do the job. And then on top of that, it helps to have some skills in how to interview, how to sell yourself when it comes to this stuff. The good news is that if you work on this stuff, this actually gives you a lot of life skills that allow your career to take off later on by developing these other skills. So thank you very much, Dagger. I appreciate it. And you're awesome. Uncle BG1. Uncle says, what can I put on my resume to overcome not having a degree? I am skilled at my job, but never received a degree. I don't think there's anything you can put on your resume that's like a substitute for a degree, nor should you have to. What you do is, like I was saying before, I always feel so embarrassed saying the same thing again. If this is becoming a problem for you, going through a recruiter because of their requirements, and you feel that their requirements are bogus, you shouldn't need a degree to do this. I've been in the job and I don't have a degree, so clearly you don't need a degree to do the job. If that's how you feel, apply for the position through networking. Go and wow them with your communication skills, and then maybe you ask them for an informational interview. You contact the hiring manager through something like LinkedIn. There are other ways too. You could call, you could show up at the reception desk and do this too. There's many ways of doing it, but the easiest thing, especially for a lot of introverts, is doing it on LinkedIn, where you contact them and say, like, look, I would love to get your expert opinion on, this industry and where it's going and, that kind of thing. Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes? And then they meet you. And then in that time, you ask them a ton of questions about what they think about the industry and where you think it's going to go and what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges and, what the future holds and all this kind of stuff, And people love talking about it. They love giving their opinion. It's like if I sat down and said, hey, what's your favorite movie? Okay, what do you like about that movie? What makes it so great? People like being asked questions like that. It's flattering. And they tend to like the person that's asking them these questions, because it seems like, especially if it seems like that person is being genuine and they're really interested, it's very flattering, right? So they talk to you about this stuff and they see in the process that your stuff, and not only that, but you've elevated yourself above the crowd by being here, and you've shown you're passionate about this company and this operation by doing it. Guess who's going to be at the top of the pile? Your resume is going to be at the top of the pile for a job that comes up in that area. You. Not because the recruiter, passed your resume through, but because the hiring manager told the recruiter, said, hey, look into this person. They've said they're looking for a job that's very similar to the one that we're going to be hiring soon. Bring them in. And they give your resume to the recruiter. And that's how that happens. Now, it takes you need to have a few skills to make all that happen, but it's really not as hard as people think. Okay. Anmal says, hey, Bill, I have an interview tomorrow for the store manager for a TELUS store. Right now, I'm working as a team leader at TELUS. Can you please give me any advice? Thanks. I don't know much about TELUS. I mean, they have TELUS where I am. They're a telecommunications company. So you're applying internally to be the manager of a store for the company you currently work with. Okay, you're a team leader now. You want to be a store manager. What I would do for that is, I know that TELUS is a big company. It's a big enterprise. So it might be a different branch of the company that's like hiring from the one that you work in. But I would do my best to contact the individuals involved in the hiring process. So like the hiring manager, okay? Who does the store manager report to? That's the big question. Okay, maybe a district manager. Find out who they are, contact them. If you don't know what to say, you could say, look, hi, my name is X. I'm a team leader at TELUS in this division. And I see that you guys have this position open or it's coming up. Would it make sense for me to apply for that? I'm really passionate about being a manager. I'd like to move up. And, but I'm not sure if you'd be looking for someone at this level, and if you phrase it right, like if you just say, would it make sense for me to apply? Their answer is probably going to be, sure, yeah, go apply. So then you apply and you say, okay, well, Mr. District Manager or Madam District Manager recommended that I apply for this. So I'm sending you my application, and then you can like there's a whole bunch of things you could do. Like it starts with things like that. Okay. So yeah. Incidentally, my Get Hired course talks about all of that. You want to know how to do get a job through networking. It sort of breaks it down step by step, all the things you have to have. Like, for example, if you're on LinkedIn and you contact them through LinkedIn, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to think, who's this person? And they're going to click on your profile. Now, if you have a bunch of unprofessional stuff on your profile, you're starting with your picture. It's you drunk when you're 20 years old, partying with your friends. It's like, that's not going to make a good impression, right? If the first thing under there, it says sales, they're wondering, who is this person? Why are they contacting me? They click on your profile. They see, oh, you're a salesperson? Oh, okay. They're probably trying to sell me something, right? So there's a whole bunch of things that have to be in place, and it steps you through that. So if that's of any interest to you, there's a link in the description of this video. Check it out. I talk about all that stuff in my Get Hired course. So far more that I could go into here, especially when I'm so behind with these questions. Terziak. I like that name. Terziak. It's a good, solid name. Thank you for being here, Terziak. Terziak says, hi, I've recently graduated and I'm looking for a role as a CAD technician. Unfortunately, most roles use a program I've never used, but it appears similar to what I've used before. I can't afford to buy this software myself, so should I just emphasize being adaptable and hope for the best? You could. That isn't the worst thing in the world, but here's what I would do, Terziak. I would try my best to get some kind of experience with that software. Okay? Maybe you can't buy it, but maybe there's other alternatives. Okay? Can you do a simulation? Can you borrow it from somebody? Maybe some other solution. All so that you can say, yes, I've used it. You don't walk into the interview and say, well, I haven't used it. Because immediately, just when you say that, red flag. No, this candidate doesn't have everything we're looking for. Okay? Now, it might not be the end of the world. You could still surmount that disadvantage, but it's still a drawback. Okay? So wouldn't it be great if you could go in there and say, yes, I've used it, and it's not a problem. If they really put the screws to you, could say, well, I'm much more experienced in this other CAD program, but I have used it, and I know it's really not that much of a shift to become an advanced user on that. It's not going to be a problem. That's what I would do. I would really try my best to be able to say legitimately that you've used it, you're familiar with it. It's not going to be a problem. Okay? If you can do that through any means, I would do it. Good question. Soccer Rock, New York. There's a name. I'm thinking of someone trying to play soccer with a rock in New York. So maybe a knife fight is involved. Is career mobility still possible if you have not really been promoted over the years and are now in your middle age years? If not, is a career change a better option? Well, look, I can't give you an absolute yes or no. It's going to depend on your situation and what careers we're talking about and what the prospects are for those and what you have. But the answer is, for the first question, is career mobility still possible? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay. If you've been in a position for 20 years, you haven't continued to move up, maybe you like being in that position. Maybe that was fine. I mean, not everybody wants to be a manager, right? And nor should they. You know, if you're a technical person, you're working in a technical job and you're cool with that, hey, great. Now, if you're asking, will some people regard it as, you know, oh, you're not upwardly mobile, so you probably should stay where you are. Yes, some people do think like that. However, others do not. Okay? So you have to, you can't just look, there's always going to be somebody out there that thinks that what you have is of no value. Okay? There always is someone like that. Also, there's always somebody out there that thinks that what you have is amazing. Okay? These two types of people exist out there for virtually anything. Okay, so, you know what I'm saying? Don't let it discourage you because some people think that that's no good, right? The question is it no good? If you want to move up, if you feel you can do it, okay, is there empirical evidence that you could do it? And if you want to do it, then go for it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it if that's what you want to do. Try it. You know, I know that's not maybe the best way of phrasing it. The point is go for it. Yeah, it's not a showstopper. Okay? Don't let what other people think dictate whether you should like change careers or whatever. If you want to change careers, change careers. If you don't, then don't. You know what I mean? You may have to apply for another company or maybe even another location. I don't know. It depends on your situation. But that in itself is not a showstopper. Okay? Maybe where you work, the powers that be, the decision makers, they have a certain worldview where they've decided that somebody who hasn't kept moving every 2 years upward, that's where they stay. You know, maybe that's their belief. Like, I don't know. But if that's what they think, then apply somewhere else. That's what I would say. I keep losing my place here. I got to find a way of doing a placeholder. TQ says, great book. Yeah, the Dale Carnegie thing is good. I mean, it's rather simplistic, but it's very good. John Miller is saying some very nice things. Thank you, John. Soccer Rock, New York, my buddy there. So true. Wow, great point. It's frustrating when a company you like can't seem to see your value and pass on you. I shake my head. Yes, it's also a factor that people in general, they place value on, how can I put this? It's like, I've said this a couple of live streams ago. Was it a prophet is not respected in their hometown? Right? It's like they will hire an external candidate and they're wowed by the external candidate's credentials. When at the same time, they might devalue an internal candidate and say, you know, like, that's just our employee, right? You know, because they're familiar, they have less value. Like that's also, I don't know what you call that syndrome, but that is definitely a thing. Now you can use that to your advantage. That's why some people do job hopping. Every 2 years, they just jump, they climb the ladder by like moving externally, you know, like this to another company, right? Okay, that is a thing too. In some industries, they really set themselves up for that. Because otherwise you'd be waiting till hell freezes over before somebody gives you a promotion at your own company, right? That's a thing too. How do you say this? Ola Lekin? Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Says, I attended an interview this morning and I flunked it. I'm sorry to hear that. I kind of froze at a question I know the answer to, but I thought it was an old school answer. Okay? Listen, practice makes perfect. Okay? Don't feel too bad about it. This is how we learn. I can pretty much guarantee that you won't make that exact mistake again, though. So that's the good news. Listen, mock interviews might be the way to go. Just get a friend or a family member just to do some pretend job interviews with you. And, you practice answering questions like in the heat of the moment when someone's staring at you, in real time. That can really help. The air fryer carnivore. I'm currently interviewing with 2 great companies. One is more of a upstart, growing rapidly with sustainable products. The other is an $8 billion food service. How do I choose? I don't know. How do you choose? Depends what you want to do. It's like if I were to ask you, how do I choose between working at a company that manufactures sandals versus one that is trying to improve the vitamin content of tomato sauce? It's like, I don't know how you would decide. It depends on what you enjoy, what your goals are. And, you could maybe make it less subjective and look at the economy, right? If the economy in one of those industries is looking up, it's on the uptick, then that might be a tiebreaker, but they're both good. Other than that, look at the job they're offering. It's a great problem to have, though. It's a problem that most people look forward to. Not a problem, Terziak. You're absolutely welcome. And it was an intelligent question. Arun Abha Mitra. I'm sure I've said that wrong, but I'm sorry. Arun Abra says, after interviews, some interviewers say that I should have been a bit short and crisp with my answers. Other times they say that I should have elaborated more. What is the right approach then? Okay, here's the answer. There is none, okay? Each person has their own preferences. And if you talk a lot, some people will like that, other people won't. If you keep your answers short and to the point without going off on a tangent and taking people on a 5-minute journey to nowhere, some people like that too. So listen, with what's within reason is that if someone asks you a question, you don't want to be really talking for more than 2 minutes without them saying anything, okay? I mean, is that a law? No, I just made that up, but that's kind of within the realms of what's reasonable. Usually you try and answer a question about a minute, okay? If you go a bit over, that's fine. But I'd say after 2 minutes, you should practice making things more compact, okay? And the other thing is that you could sort of give them a bit of information and you could say is that kind of what you're looking for? Or you talk to them, they ask you a question, you say, what do you feel about this? Or tell me about your skills in here, or why do you think this is important? And you start talking, you say, oh yeah, I think it's important, blah, 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 blah. Are you asking more about as it relates to this role, or you're talking about more of as it relates to the industry, and get them to elaborate? And if they want to hear more, they could say, well, either is fine. You'd be like, okay, you keep it short. But if they say, no, I'm talking about as it relates to this job, what do you think? Then you go, okay. And then you give them maybe a minute answer on that, right? So about a minute is good. Maybe up to 2 minutes I would consider reasonable. But if you're talking for 5 minutes without the other person saying anything, I don't think that's the best idea. Okay? Now, beyond that, everyone is going to give you advice on what they liked. But the thing is, it's like it's like shooting at a moving target. You can't satisfy everybody, and there's no one right answer. So that's a good, reasonable thing to do, in my opinion. Anmal says, thank you so much, Bill, for your valuable advice. Can you please share your LinkedIn link? Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You could look me up, but I don't connect to just anyone. I connect to actually people that I know and have either met or I do business with, that kind of thing. But I'm here every Wednesday on the live streams. That's my sort of link to the public. So if you got a question, this is the place to be. You get to enjoy this rambling, unending, unstructured stream of consciousness thing that I do. My buddy, Uncle BG1, thank you. I think you should write a book. Well, thank you very much. I haven't written a book, but I have got 2 courses, and hopefully to be joined by a 3rd one in a couple of months. And it's very kind of you to say so. AW, not A and W, but AW says, I've been called for another interview in the same company where I'm working. Well, good. Hopefully that's a good thing. They hopefully know you and like you. At least they like you enough to keep you working there, right? So they must think you're good. AW says, sorry, it's me again. That's okay. You don't have to be sorry. I like you. Now, I didn't get a chance in the first interview, and they have a second interview, and surprisingly, with the same people. You didn't get a chance in the first interview? I don't know what you mean by that. Like, they didn't choose you to come in for an interview in the first round or something, but now they're giving you an interview? Well, hopefully that's a good sign. You're welcome, Olalekin, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, like, anybody's name, you reserve the right to pronounce it any way you want. I don't quite believe that, but it's just, it's hard to, I always get so nervous I have to say people's names because I just know that I'm bastardizing it. I hope nobody takes it personally. Justin says, thoughts on sharing your screen in a video interview, whether tech or non-tech, either way. Beneficial or not needed? 90-day plan, reared dashboards, project portfolio, for example. What do you mean? What do you mean by that, Justin? Thoughts on sharing your screen in a video, whether you should or not? And who are you? I mean, not to sound like an amateur or anything, but who are you sharing it with? You're talking about you're sharing your screen with the interviewer, right? I'm assuming. This is what? To demonstrate that, like to show them documents, show them things you've done, like a portfolio, that kind of thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you can do it. I imagine this would be only for like a technical type interview, right? Yeah, like a project portfolio. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, like if it was a portfolio, I mean, maybe I'm just old school, but I would prefer to send them documents. Like here's an example, here's a PDF, here's, whatever file, project file, and do it that way. But I think, I don't know, I think that's a lot of crap, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know what people are asking in all the different types of interviews in the world for every type of job, but it's like, if you have accomplishments in a certain field or you have a certain educational qualification, like say you have a degree in engineering, you shouldn't have to prove like that you can do drafting, for example, if you have a degree in engineering. It's a fully accredited degree. It's recognized. It's gotten in a university. Why would you need to demonstrate to them that you know the basics of engineering when you've gotten a degree, right? It's like interviewing for an accounting position and they're saying, well, I know you're a certified accountant, but show me that you know how to read a balance sheet by reading a balance sheet in front of us. It's like, well, if I can't read a balance sheet, how can I be a certified accountant? So I think that that's just recruiter madness. They don't understand the first thing about accounting. So, you know what I mean? They need some kind of proof to convince them. So I don't really know what you would do in that situation. None of that should really be necessary. Now, if they're trying to give you like an aptitude test, that's something else, right? But I don't understand why they would need that. But hey, if that's what they're wanting, I don't think there's any harm in it specifically. So sure. Just make sure that they can't see any personal stuff. You know what I mean? Like if you're sharing your screen with somebody, you know, do it securely and all that kind of thing. And don't show confidential information or personal information, you know, like all that stuff, right? You just have to do all that stuff intelligently. Not a problem, Arun Abha, if I'm saying that right. Not a problem at all. You are awesome. TQ. If an interviewer starts hinting toward their political views and seems to want a response, how do you avoid discussing it without being dismissive or rude? Well, look, I mean, it depends on the degree that we're talking about here. If it's something very minor, very off the cuff, you know, I would just kind of smile and nod, you know, whatever. If they're really wanting to get into it, if it were me, I would say like, well, you know, I don't discuss politics in general with people, just as a personal policy. I'm sure you understand, you know. Like the thing is, and I know a lot of people don't share this, especially a lot of young people, but as you get older, as you get a higher level, most people realize that the thing to do is to not give your personal opinions on everything. Because the more you do, and like political stuff falls under that, religious stuff falls under that, you know, because the more you do, the more you divide. You know, some people agree with you and some people really won't. So if you don't need to give your opinion on something, you know, like some personal reaction to something, then just don't. Because it doesn't, in the end, good things don't happen, right? Because if I told you right now what my favorite music was, what my favorite movies were, what my favorite books were, what my political views were, what my religious views were, my views on social issues, chances are, okay, something in there would not jive with what you think. And then forever after, you would be, oh, he's the person that thinks that, which is totally opposite to me. And then it would be like, oh, I don't like that person as much, you know? So unless you really have to talk about it, I would keep that stuff pretty close to your chest. So a job interview especially, I agree with you. You shouldn't be talking about politics or anything. Now listen, it takes all kinds, okay? So you're going to get people out there interviewing for a job, and maybe they have decided I only hire people that have this certain political opinion or religious opinion or social opinion. And look, if that's how they feel, there's not really you can do too much. There's not too much you can do about that. Okay? But you can prevent yourself from being sucked into that. Okay? You know, I think most responsible employers, certainly people that know about how to do a job interview, they won't bring up that stuff because we all know it's unprofessional. And it can even border around some legal, you know, employment standards and things, depending where you are in the world. So it's just a bad idea to go there. If they're going there, if it's something small, I would just smile and nod. If it was something big, I would say like, well, listen, I make it a point not to discuss politics and not to discuss religion in general, you know, as a personal policy. I'm sure you understand. And then if they don't accept that for some reason, it's just like, okay, well, thank you very much for your time. You know, I mean, what can you do at that point? You know, if you fundamentally disagree with them and they're just not letting it die, you know, if they're pushing you into a corner, that's how I would handle it. Justin says, created dashboards, I meant, but yes, with the hiring manager. Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like, if it's something pretty innocuous, sure, go ahead. Share your screen. Not a problem in itself. But if it's something kind of iffy and more nefarious, like they want your login ID, they want to see what's on your computer, they want you to open a browser, they want, you know, like, I think you know that that's not good. The other thing is that hiring methods are changing all the time. People are using computers more, especially since the pandemic, doing things remotely, doing all kinds of more advanced types of interviews remotely. So, I mean, I'm not down with all the latest stuff that they're doing in every industry and how it all works, but I don't think there's any harm in principle, as long as they don't ask for something really, really suspicious. And thank you, Justin. I'm pretty much caught up. So Antonio Diaz says, job interviews are like first dates. Don't talk about religion, politics, or abortion. Yeah, I agree. Nothing controversial. Like, no good comes of it. In general. There's always perhaps exceptions. If you're going to work in a medical facility and the topic of abortion or something comes up, I mean, okay, I could see that maybe being relevant, I suppose, but in general, you don't go there. It's just a bad idea. Justin says, wanted to comment, I always think the audio quality in your videos are spot on, must be an awesome microphone, but always good sounds. It's not the microphone. It's knowing a little bit about audio production. It's been a hobby for me my entire life. And so what I've done is I've got this mic. I've got about, 40 microphones. I've got this one. And what I've done is I've run it through an EQ, then I've run it through a compressor, and then a noise gate, and another EQ, and then a limiter. Or a paramedic compander, whatever, I can't remember. And so what that does is, hopefully you're not getting the noise from, there's like an air conditioning system in here, and you're getting air blowing and stuff, and you hopefully don't hear that, but you hear my voice. And if I go a little bit further away, or I come a little bit closer, the levels should be good. And almost the same. But thank you. That's the first time anyone's really commented on that. So thank you for noticing. If you go back and look at my earlier videos, I did each video with a different microphone for like a couple of months. But I think in 2020 or something. So I used all kinds of slightly weird, non-standard microphones to do videos. But thank you, Justin. You're awesome. That's a very, very astute of you. Bertan H. Any advice on explaining an employment gap due to immigration or previously waiting for a work permit without making it a big deal? No. I mean, listen. Depending on how long a gap we're talking about, okay? If it's like a month, nobody cares. If it's like a year, then you're going to have to say something. And if someone had a year-long gap in their employment record and they said, well, I was just waiting for an immigration issue, that kind of wouldn't be good enough for me. What I would accept would be if somebody said, well, I was waiting for an immigration issue. I was getting my visa or whatever. And in the meantime, I did some training. I did some industry-related training. I took a certificate in this. I took an online course in that, that kind of stuff. So I can keep my skills fresh and brush up on the latest stuff in this industry. Something like that. That would be like, okay, cool. That makes perfect sense. Okay, something like that. TQ says, thank you. So far, I've just nodded and smiled, and then it gets to that awkward silence vibe. Yeah, it's just a matter of, I know this is easier said than done, but it's a matter of developing those interpersonal skills, learning how to have a pleasant conversation with many different types of people in many different types of situations, and it helps lightening the moods sometimes, things like that. But yeah, practice makes perfect. Antonio Lopez says, do you have any knowledge on how to land a job in another country that would require a visa? I am a current gig worker that wants to switch industries and get to a job in the UK, and it will be a battle. That's not really my area, Antonio, like immigration issues and visas. Especially to the UK, that's unfortunately not really my core competency. I have dealt with that kind of stuff, like on the fringes of it, but I'm not an authority to give advice in that type of area. All I can say is what I've said kind of before on this topic, where if you're moving to from a home country to a host country, what can be very, very important is getting a personal reference, like a reference in the host country. So if you're going from, I don't know, Venezuela to the UK and you're trying to get a job in the UK, what can be all important is getting some kind of reference in the UK. So someone who's worked with you professionally, an employer, a boss, one of those people to give you a reference. Okay. So what I have seen, I don't know if this is the best way or the only way, but what I've seen is for people to get a job, like just get any job almost once they get to the host country. Like, you're driving a taxi, you're doing unskilled manual labor, whatever. Just so you could do it for a little bit, just to get a reference. So you can say, here's my employer in the UK, and you can call them. They will give me a reference. They've even given me a letter of recommendation to give to you, right? Just for like some manual labor job, right? So that can help you get your foot in the door in the host country, in like the UK or whatever country you're moving to. Okay. So I have seen that. I know that that's a thing. Instead of, and I say this, it's as opposed to going for your proper job. So say you're a fully qualified, I don't know, IT person. Okay. Instead of getting a job directly in IT in the UK or whatever your host country is, just take any job that will give you a job just so you can get that reference. And then you have somebody local that can say, yes, this is a good employee. They're punctual. They do what they're told. They don't have any personal issues. And they're a hard worker. And yes, no issues. But as I said, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Immigration is not my field of expertise. A shout out to my Patreons, by the way. I have several Patreons. They're awesome. And some of them are watching. So thank you. Bertrand H. says, thank you. I will mention the online courses and training I took during the wait. Yes. Oh, definitely. If you've already done it, definitely mention that. Because it's not really a gap. It's just like, okay, I went back to school. There you go. Like there's an understandable justification for why your employment ends here. I went back to school. I was in school. So you're not idle. You're not unemployed. You're in school. Bertrand, is it okay to mention roughly the same things for questions related to why they should hire me and what my strengths are? Yes, definitely. Definitely. See, people think that for some reason that you can only say something once in a job interview. That's not true. Like if they ask you several questions in a row that has the same answer, you give that answer. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like if somebody says what's your name? And you say, oh, my name is Bill. And they go, oh, okay. Well, what do people call you? When they refer to you, say, oh, they call me Bill. Oh, okay. But what do you want us to call you? Well, Bill. It's the same answer, right? If they say, what's your greatest strength? Well, my greatest strength is that I have this qualification. This is a hard qualification to get. I spent 4 years at university. It was very, very challenging. It's a very, very hard program to pass, but I got it. I graduated. I got great grades, and it's really helped me. And they say, oh, well, what do you think you would be able to bring to this job? And you say, well, I'd be able to bring my skills, being a fully qualified, whatever, because I've got this qualification. I can bring that here. That allows me to have insights into all these things and make decisions that really benefit the company in new ways that most people can't do. something like that. It's like you're saying the same thing. I've got this degree, right? Well, why should we hire you? Well, for one, it's because I have these skills. I have the ability to do this. I can make you a lot of money because I have these skills. It's the same answer, right? Don't think that I've already said that, so I have to move on to something else. You don't, if that's the answer to the question. The other thing is that, if it's really important, you need to mention it perhaps more than once. Most people, they don't register most of what you're saying. I've been sitting here talking for 2 hours. A couple of you people I know have been here since the beginning. Do you remember every single thing I said? No, you don't. You've forgotten 98% of it. Maybe a couple of points stick in your mind, but if you're lucky, but that's it, right? So if I mention the same thing more than once during this entire thing, is that bad? No. I'm just being honest. I'm getting different questions, and some of the answers overlap. Same thing in a job interview. You're welcome, Bertrand. So I have another 5 to 10 minutes tops. So if anybody has any other questions or any last questions, I see there's 30 people here. You guys are awesome for being here. I appreciate it. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, at least hold your peace until next Wednesday when I'll be back. I don't know what time I'm going to do. I'm experimenting with the time on Wednesdays. And I used to do it early in the morning, then I did it late at night, and now it's kind of in the middle somewhere. Just seeing what time works best for people. If you haven't done it so far, you can subscribe to my other YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2. That's where this live stream is going to be posted. I don't keep these on my main channel. So go to The Company's Expert 2 and subscribe if you like this kind of thing. If you're into this kind of thing, if it's right up your alley, and you can't get enough of this hairdo and this incredibly organized thought process, go there and subscribe. And yeah, like I mentioned, if you do have questions, this is the vehicle to ask me. I get a lot of people asking questions. I always get people occasionally, they'll write these big long questions in the comments. They'll have Bill, so tell me, and then they'll have this like it's almost like a page of writing, And unfortunately, I can't respond to those. It's just not efficient to type out like a big, long answer to that. It's just unsustainable. Unfortunately, I can't devote that kind of time to it. So for those types of questions, this is the way to do it. This is get on the live stream, ask a question in the live stream, and I can actually answer those. Yeah, okay. Well, it doesn't seem like there's too many more questions coming. So it's been nearly 2 hours. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Remember, the job interview process, it can be very discouraging. The rejection can really sting. But like I've said a whole bunch of times, and you guys should know this by now, it's just the biggest factor is random probability. Whether you apply for something and you get it, the biggest factor is random chance. It's like throwing a dice, okay? You take your best shot, but then it's random chance. So one of the things you can do is you can throw the dice many times, right? That's one thing you can do, apply for as many positions as you can. And the other thing is to improve the quality of the things you apply for. If you've been replying to posted jobs for a very long time and it hasn't been going anywhere fast, maybe try some of the other methods to get a job. The most popular method to find a job is networking. Don't take my word for this if this is surprising to you. Do your own research. You'll see that it's true. something like 80% of people that get jobs get it through networking. It's a very high percentage. Only like that last 20% of people actually get their jobs through posted job, like applying to a job posting, going in cold, and getting selected. This surprises a lot of people, especially young people. It surprised me when I first learned this when I was like 25 years old or something. You've got 80% of the people competing for those 20% of jobs that are posted publicly. The other 80% of the jobs that are out there, there isn't a lot of competition for. They're not posted publicly, And it's funny because I get a lot of people like challenging, like vehemently disagreeing with that, saying, no, that can't be true. Well, it is. It is. Look, I'm not here to impose my will on anyone. Go and do your own research. It might take you a few years to realize this or to see it, but it's true. Most jobs, they have a job, they want to hire someone, but they haven't posted it publicly. Okay? There's many reasons for that. It's very expensive and time consuming, and it's a real pain in the ass to post a job publicly. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, it's much easier to think like, okay, who do I know that would be an obvious candidate for this? If you know some people, and most business people know a lot of people, you're like, yeah, they might be interested. I hope I can get them. And then you call them in. You say, hey, let's talk. What are your goals? Blah, blah, blah. Right? Or someone contacts you and says, hey, I would love to work at your company. And you're like, hey, this person looks really good. Let's talk to them. If they work out, maybe we could just hire them and dispense with the entire rest of the process. Right? This is a thing. People doubt me on this. Now, yes, if you work in government or in a few other organizations, they do have, some of them, and this is a small minority, but they do have formal policies where they have to post all jobs. Like in government, usually they do that. They post all jobs. Doesn't mean that they really are objective in hiring candidates like that, but they go through the motions to make it look like it's objective. And then they hire the person that they wanted. But this is a thing. So the sooner you learn to tap that, the more options you have, the better things go. And generally, the more desirable jobs, that's how they're filled. And wouldn't it be great if the person that's the boss is the one that hired you? You're reporting to the person who believed in you enough to hire you. That's really good. For those of you who have experienced that, you know how good that is. For those of you who have a boss that inherited you, they didn't hire you, they inherited you, you know how that goes. Not nearly as well, right? So you can avoid that entire situation also as a fringe benefit by getting hired through networking. Why don't you hear about this more often? Because who are the people that talk most about job search and hiring? Recruiters. And it's kind of a conflict for a recruiter to tell you, oh, you don't need to go through a recruiter. Bypass the recruiters altogether and go straight to the boss. It's a bit of a conflict for a lot of them to say that. So that's why you don't hear about it as often as maybe you should. That's all I'll say. Okay. Bertrand, AW, can you please answer my what was your question, AW? Where is your question? They didn't give me okay, here's the last thing you said. They didn't give me a job after the first interview, and there's another opportunity, but this is weird to be interviewed with the same people. What's your advice? I thought I answered that. What? Like it's weird? Yeah, it might be weird, but if you do like first, second, third interviews, a lot of times most of the people interviewing will be in common. It'll be you're going back to the same people. So I don't know what your question was. What is my advice? Well, I don't see an issue, okay? if you worked at one place, they gave you a job, and then you're going back to get another job, the issue is not whether it's weird talking to the same people. The first issue I would have is, why are you leaving so soon? Right? I don't care about the people interviewing you. If they look at your resume and see that you've only been in that job for a very short amount of time, if that's the case, that would be an issue. That would raise some questions like, okay, you were given a job and then now you're immediately trying to get out of it. So that does not send a good signal about you. The obvious thing is that if we give you this job, what's to stop you from then trying to jump out of it? Because that's what you're demonstrating is your behavior, right? So that's the only relevant issue there as far as I can see, if I understand correctly. You know, the other, if I'm, okay, maybe another interpretation on this, if they didn't hire you for one thing, but now you're interviewing with them for a second thing, it can be a red flag. Maybe they just don't value some of the things you have, but it could also have been because they felt that you weren't really suitable for that job, but they could feel you're suitable for this one. That also is a possibility. You don't really know these things. The only control you have is over what you do. And what you should do is, if you want this job and it's good for you, apply for it. You know, I wouldn't second guess like, oh no, these people might think this, so then I'm not going to go for my dream job, or I'm not going to do something that would be in my advantage to do. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry for perhaps not answering that very clearly or very thoroughly before. Derek, thank you for sharing your experience. Happy follower here. Well, thank you, Derek. It's very kind of you to say so too. And that makes me feel good. So thanks to everybody who is tuned in today. You guys are all awesome. I wish you the best of luck. I guess I'll do my usual thing at the end where I plug some of my stuff. I haven't talked about my $100 MBA course. I have a course. Check it out if you're interested in learning business. And the way that comes into this discussion is two ways. Number one, if you're wanting to climb the corporate ladder, okay, and get promoted and get promoted and get promoted, okay, generally that means taking on more of a management role. And the higher you go up into management, the less you need your technical abilities and skills, the more you need abilities in other areas. You need to manage people, you need to manage money, you need to understand the business in general, how business works. And that's a different skill set from what you needed as a worker. So if that's of any interest to you, I created a course which fulfills a very specific function. It's for people that want to learn those skills, but yet at the same time, they don't need an accredited qualification. Okay. An MBA, to get an accredited MBA, you're talking at least 4 figures to get an accredited MBA, usually 5 figures. And I'm talking in American dollars. Usually 1 year, but commonly up to 2 years to get an MBA, Masters of Business Administration. So this is kind of like a shortcut. It's done for a very small amount of money, $100. You can learn the same skills because you're reading the same textbooks as they use in the universities to learn the material. The only difference is that you're not being evaluated. There's no tests, there's no assignments. It's entirely self-study. You do it entirely on your own terms, on your own schedule, and to the depth to which you're interested. If you only want to skim the material, you can. If you want to go really in depth, you can. So that's what this was created for. So if that's something that you're interested in, check out the link in the description to learn more about that. I also have a video where I answer questions for like half an hour on that course. So if you're really wanting to know exactly what it is and how it works and all that kind of stuff, just check that out. It's on my channel. And And yeah, also it figures into the conversation in that another employment option for a lot of people is to be self-employed, right? To have your own business, either a small business or you're in a startup, which is more innovative. And those are options for a lot of people. There's many other ways to get money other than just having a job, okay? Being an employee, okay? You could be in business for yourself. You could be an investor, blah, there's all kinds of things. But learning business and starting your own business is a valid employment option for a lot of people, okay? If you don't believe me on this, I mean, look at the most obvious example in front of us, YouTube. You know, there's people that start YouTube channels and they use the YouTube channel for their entire income and they make a good living out of it. That's also a possibility. I mean, that's just one example of millions of a type of company you can start up, and you make your own money and you don't have a boss, but it requires some skills. You got to learn a bit of business to do it successfully. Any kind of artistic ambition or hobby you might have had. Maybe you like painting portraits. Maybe you like doing art. You know, maybe you like doing arts and crafts, or, you know, whatever. You know, how do you turn that into a business? Well, you learn business. As soon as there's money involved, it's business, okay? You're dealing with marketing, you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with accounting. That's business. So if that's your ambition, you know, learn a bit of business. And if you're between jobs and this is kind of what you're wanting to do, maybe my course is an option for you. Okay. So there you go. Thank you. Last question. I'm going to take one final question. This is from Carl. It says, any tips to appear more confident in the interviews? I've done a video on that exact thing, how to be confident in an interview. So check out that. Just do a search on YouTube, The Company's Expert, that's me, and then confident, okay? And then it should come up. You know, there's several things you can do. And Gerson says, The Company Expert, let me tell you, thank you so much. You are awesome. Thank you, Gerson, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. You are awesome. Thank you for being here. I wish you all the best. You guys are great. I will be here again next Wednesday. I don't know what time, but just it'll say on my channel. Come and check it out if you want more questions. You guys are awesome. Best of luck, and I will see you next week. Take care.